Hi everyone, Sean Healy, change agent and relationship consultant here. You're watching the Relationship Resourcing Series, a series designed to offer support in our business and personal relationships. So welcome to today's episode entitled Attachment and Kids. I love it when I forget the episode. Attachment and Kids, that's the episode. So this one looks a bit more at the parent-child relational dynamic. I thought this one was important to do because parenting has never been more demanding and never more sophisticated than it is now. You know, as we're coming into awareness of being more emotionally attuned, yet we still have the demands of meeting the child's physical needs, and the landscape is shifting dramatically. So I thought that we would talk today about one of the key principles around raising happy, healthy kids. I take the idea, there's a fantastic resource, a book called Hold On To Your Kids, Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate. I hope I pronounced Gabor's surname correctly. They're both PhDs and medical doctors, I believe, but their book is fantastic. It looks at attachment strategy. The idea of attachment and bonding comes from the work of people like psychologist John Bowlby, and then researcher Mary Ainsworth was able to verify this. But the idea that children have an attachment bond, in the early days, it's pivotal to their survival. It starts with the first bond, which is the mother and child, and then progresses out to the father, and then those that are closest to the child. However, what happens as the child is developing a mature attachment mechanism, provided that ideally that they are raised with a fairly attuned parental environment around them, is even then the child has a very, very much, in the early days of developmental maturity, the attachment system is very all or nothing. So that this is where you see in a toddler, a stranger to them approaches, smiles and says hello, and instead the toddler grabs onto the parent's leg and goes actively trying to repel the person, because again, when they're developing their attachment style, they don't have nuance, they don't have diversity. It's very much an all or nothing kind of strategy. And we need to be aware of this, because as children grow and get into, the earlier and earlier, there's external threats to that attachment bond between the parents and the child. When I was young, there was after a certain time of night, when we came indoors, that was it. There was no external pressure on the family system. From 6 o'clock at night, once the children all finished playing outside, then you were in the family home. And so what this meant was, traditionally, there were more opportunities to be in proximity with children. There were more opportunities to keep the bond between parents and children strong. And the natural kind of setup of the family system meant that the child was guided through that attachment and through the family and the broader family until, as they got older, then they began to bond with broader members of society. But what is one of the most significant challenges to modern parenting is that the outside world can reach into the family home 24/7. And I've seen young people 12 and 13 years of age, and their phone starts going off with apps at 7:30 in the morning, other 12, 13-year-olds reaching out. And so what this means is that our attachment to our children comes under threat. And if that bond becomes weak, this is where we tend to see a spike in behavioral issues for the child. If the child's relational needs aren't getting met, they're not in a place where they can articulate that or even be aware sometimes. So it comes out in escalated behavior, it comes out in defiant behavior. And if the child finally breaks that attachment and prematurely moves to being bonded with a group of other 12 and 13-year-olds, then suddenly your beautiful little child is a petulant, defiant adolescent who has no interest anymore in anything you've got to say, is only interested in being with the source of their now attachment security, which is other developmentally immature teens. And this can create such problems. So it's so important, if you want to kind of foster a child's authenticity, help give them direction and containment, that you consistently make your presence known in your child's life. This is what we call, we engage in what we call collecting rituals. The first way that children bond is through proximity. You know, we tend to bond to what's closest to us. And that's challenging in modern parenting when there's so much demands on us in terms of our careers, in terms of social media dragging our attention away from where we are right now. And we just have to make sure that we're mindful to be attuned to our children, to be consistently connecting and collecting them. The main thing is consistency. And so sometimes it's just a couple of times a day we're really stopping and we're giving the child 5 minutes of our undivided attention. We're not just praising a child when they're doing actions or getting good grades, because that makes them think that the only way to get attention and value is when they're doing, but rather we're just acknowledging them when they're just being, and we're letting them know how precious and valuable they are to us. And we're not always taking every moment to correct and police the child's behavior. There are moments where we are looking to focus on the health of our relational attachment with the child, rather than getting bogged down in these micro moments where we're constantly adjusting a child's behavior, because ironically that actually has the opposite result. If our attachment with our child is strong, if our bond is strong, part of the attachment in biology is that what it means is we are naturally more compliant. We're naturally wanting to be more pleasing because we want to honor the bond. Please don't misuse that, because if you do, that can really rebound on you poorly. But it's good to know that the healthier our relationship is between ourselves and the child, the more compliant the child will generally be. If the child's emotional needs are getting met, then the child ideally will be more settled. And then if we're able to not be too egocentric in our parenting and force our idea of what the child should be onto them, but rather do everything to honor their authenticity with containment and support, then we're going to find that the need to act out by right should be greatly reduced. And so often when I'm speaking with parents who are having dramas, it's often because the parents are so engaged in other things. Maybe they're running a business, and I get that, I absolutely do. And it's just a consequence that we still have to find time and space for children, because I've met people who I go, I don't know why they even had kids. You know, they're workaholics who never spend time. But again, when you look at their family system and you found that they grew up in a family that was very much the same, and perhaps one of their parents was a workaholic, then this is what they're familiar with. And we can't afford that anymore. There used to be an element where the consequences of that were not so severe, because our culture was naturally kept the children more collected towards the family system. But with the internet and all these apps these days, it's never been more challenging to keep contact and connection with children, because the world is trying to draw them out. Their tribe, their virtual tribe, their school tribe are demanding their connection and their attachment. And if we lose that, we can get it back, but wow, it's difficult, because all of a sudden, if their attachment system is immature, they will suddenly push back against us while they try to attach and connect, often at the expense of their own authenticity. But I'm going to go along with things that I might perceive aren't quite right. But what I value more is the attachment to the group I'm trying to bond to. And so suddenly we can see spikes in misbehavior, we can see lack of interest in schooling, and a whole other series of behavioral symptoms that say we need to regather our children, we need to reconnect, we need to rebond with the children. And so, things like taking the family away for a couple of days, taking the children for a walk, we're doing activities that just are about acknowledging the contact. Not, like I said, we're creating space where it's just about me as the parent and you as the child being in each other's space and enjoying our time together. Because it does require, part of keeping the attachment between a parent and child strong is that individual. Family time is wonderful and so important. However, we need to be making individual bonding time with each of our children as a parent, so that we really can solidify that bond. And if we can take the time, I know that's demanding and everyone's like, wow, isn't there enough to already think about? I really get that, but doing this consistently, finding emotional space for your child can potentially save so many issues down the track and so much pain for you and your children if you just take the time to let them know through behavior and through presence and through your time that they matter. Children pay attention to our behaviors, not our words. If we are there, they get the message that they must matter. Why? Because we're there. And we're not there sitting with them, but they're watching TV and we're on Facebook or something like that. No, we're really there with them. We're really showing them presence. We're really demonstrating to them that the relationship between you and I is important, because I'm putting down everything right now to just be with you. And if we can do that, that's so powerful, not only from the perspective of strengthening the attachment bond between ourselves and our children, but also it's so validating, it's so powerful for a child's esteem, because it sends a strong message that their very beingness is valued and precious. And that is just so powerful when we can kind of do that kind of, we can give that gift to the child, that we can validate the child, that we can really send a clear message to the child that they are worth, that, just their very presence is enough, and it's valuable enough. They don't have to be doing, they don't have to constantly try to adapt and mold themselves, but just who they are is so valuable. And if we can do our best to send that message wherever possible, this is not about putting extra pressure on yourself. It's about doing the best we can with what we can do. But when you see the opportunity, it's about taking that, and it's not negating that sometimes it's just small moments, a few minutes here, a few minutes there, where we stop in the hallway as we pass the child in the morning and we just take 2 minutes to be present with them. So we can have these micro collecting rituals that we're creating that are just as important as the larger. It's not like we have to, ideally would be fantastic if we put a day aside, even if it's only once a month or once a fortnight, where it's just you and the child spending some time together. But we are taking advantage of every small moment that we can, because it all adds up. It all sends a consistent message to the child that your bond with me is really important. And we're doing everything we can to continue to nurture that bond, because 24/7, whether we like it or not, it's under external pressure. That bond is being challenged by the external world, the online world, it's just a consequence. It's just a consequence of modern parenting. So I would certainly recommend, without hesitation, the book Hold On to Your Kids. I think it's a fantastic one. Heavy read, but I certainly think it's worth it to take the time to really get through that. There are some other really fantastic parenting books that I might talk about in other episodes, but that's one I really found really insightful. That, if things are not going smoothly between ourselves and our children, the first thing to check is, how is the relationship between us? How is the bond between us? And that, by addressing and entering at that level of the health of the relationship, rather than this moment where the child has not been, in my eyes, ideal, then we might find that just by addressing that, certain things settle right down. So it's a good place to start. Might not be the only thing, but it is a good place to start. So I hope that this has given you some more things to think about. Parenting is an amazing and challenging journey, and I wish you all the best on it. Rarely is there an area that demands that people grow more and stretches them more, and yet is amazingly rewarding. So if you're on that journey, be kind to yourself too. Include yourself in that kindness. It's just about continuing to improve. It's not about being perfect, because then you're setting yourself up. But really, it's about setting the intent to be as present as we can when we can with our children. So I wish you well with all of that. I thank you for watching the episode. If you want to reach out and connect with me more, I do private consultations online or face-to-face. I also do in-house and public-based trainings looking at all elements of communicational and people-based dynamics. And of course, you can visit me at the website emergencetraining.com.au. Thank you again for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please download and subscribe. Really helps the reach of the relationship resourcing series. Thank you again for watching. Until we see you on the next episode. Bye for now.